I'm going to start with another story. I want to talk to you about file size, and this really became an issue when I was starting to work with a new client, and I was working from home way back before everybody was doing it. And that's what happens when you're a freelancing consultant, and what you bring to marketing mix is really, you know, very specific. I was working with a client where I needed to see their entire marketing folder in order to get a sense of what they were doing, because when they engaged me, they were sort of half using a CRM system that they had bought, but they didn't really have all of their data in it. And as a result, they had their data in a series of Microsoft workbooks, which they were casually and colloquially referring to among themselves as their databases. And they were basically living out of moving trucks because they didn't have movers who could move them into the house they had just bought. And that was what I was kind of essentially there to do. But in order for me to do that, I had to, you know, sync up their entire marketing file. And I had to do that using Dropbox and using my unreliable home Wi-Fi connection, and the thing took hours. And after a while, I realized why. It was because their databases, which were entirely in Excel, were gigantic. And I think that a lot of people just assume that, oh, if my file's a database and it has a lot of information in it, that of course it should be, you know, megabytes huge. But I'm going to show you that it doesn't necessarily have to be the case. And there's a few really useful things that you can do with any Excel file that you have created or have maybe inherited from somebody else, that's going to make that file a lot easier to manage, and it'll take up a lot less space on your marketing drives. And so you'll be able to conserve your resources in those dimensions. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. I'm actually going to shut off my video. I'm going to be staring into my monitor, and there you have it. So here we go. And the added advantage of that is that my bandwidth and connection will be a little more stable as well on this end. So to start with, all right. Can everyone see? What does everybody see? Do you see my Windows file directory?
I do. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, super. So I'm just going to move this out of my way. So as you will see, one of these files, it's again colloquially called a marketing database, is 93,000 and change megabytes, which is way huge. And when I double click to open it up in Excel, it takes a long time to load. And you are probably still seeing that file window. So let me just keep doing that. Sorry, I want to see it myself. Now, as it is opening, which is taking a long time, trust me, one of the things that you might automatically resort to is using file compression, such as WinZip or StuffIt or WinRAR to compress the file. And somebody did that, and as a result, I think it was probably me, somebody did that, and they were able to get the file down to 6 megabytes, which isn't, it isn't bad. However, in Microsoft itself, you can, in Excel rather, there are 2 or 3 things that you can change about that file that eliminate all the bloat and don't give up any of the data that's important to you. So I'm going to see if that file opened in the background as I was telling you that. It is going to be a while, but that's all right. I can vamp for a meanwhile while it opens up. Briefly, the 3, just a sec. Just a second. I'm going to stop the share and put myself back on. Briefly, there are three things that happen in Microsoft's files. One is that the editing history is maintained in the file. All those commands that you do, you're able to undo and then redo. All of those are kept in and entered and stored in the file when you save it, particularly if you have like auto save that runs in the background and saves a version of your file every so often. I'm not, don't quote me on that. I don't know if that's true, but that seems like a logical explanation for why it is, because it saves, so all that auto saving saves all that history into the file. And the problem is that when you save and close the session and open it up again, you don't have access to all of those undos and edit moves that you made, but they're just kind of sitting there and they need to be eliminated. So one thing that you can do in order to eliminate that problem is to, it's an attempt, it may or may not work for you, is to save the file as a totally different file name so that all of the editing history that might have been inside of it is something that goes away because it's a fresh new file. Your mileage may differ, but in this particular case, and I'm going to see if it's loaded up now, and if it is, I will share my screen. Hi. Uh-oh. It's supposed to have been shared. Nope, here it is. Great. Just a sec. Okay. Can everybody see the Excel spreadsheet with the red row?
Not yet. It still says started screen share. Now we can see the red.
Oh, it'll probably take a few. Uh-huh.
We can see it now.
Good. So in this particular zoom out, not because the information is that important or sensitive, but it happens to be kind of out of date anyhow. What's happening in here is this spreadsheet has about 19 populated columns, and I think in all it amounts to about 1,000, a little over 1,000 rows. It's not, you know, it's a pretty good sized list of contact information. And there's a lot of formatting. Some of it is sheet level, some of it's column level, and some of it's row level, and some of it's individual cell level. The really odd wrinkle with this spreadsheet or with this entire workbook is that ordinarily when you press the Command plus End key, what happens? Usually when you hit Command plus End, it takes you to the lower right-hand most populated cell in your worksheet. That's what's supposed to happen. But when I hit Control End, note that the furthest populated column here is column S, which is 19. When I hit Control End, it takes me all the way to AR. So here again, what happened there is there's a property of each worksheet called use range that's entered in, and you can't change it you can't change it programmatically. You have to be able to change it. You change it manually, and you do it by this really kind of manual way. It's very simple. You basically are going to manually delete all of these empty columns and any empty rows if those exist too, because and I'm going to do it in a second. Actually, I'll do it right now, but the difference will be pretty transparent. You won't notice the difference, and I'll show you why. So I'm just about to delete all the content, all the quote unquote, I'm using air quotes here, content in these rows, because if you were to save off this worksheet as a comma separated values file and open it up in a text editor, you would see a whole lot of commas and empty double quotes, meaning that there's just nothing but empty text strings in here that qualify and count as, you know, data, quote unquote, again, and that are populated in these cells. So so once you delete these guys, these empty columns, what you then see, what's left is all of the sheet and row level formatting that puts those borders around all of the cells in this particular worksheet. And then the next thing that you would do is you'd cycle through all of the other sheets and save it off, and you would have a much smaller file that is more indicative of the amount of actual information in it. And like I said, it's, you know, it's 1,000 rows, give or take. And this is just one sheet, and this particular workbook has about a dozen pages. So I'm going to close this now. Actually, I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to close this file. Don't save. Make sure I don't save. And I'm going to return to myself in just a minute. I want to return to the Windows file, rather the file, File Explorer, sorry, window. And just Julia Child used to do on her cooking show, I put a couple of saved versions of this spreadsheet where I had applied some of these modifications. And as I can show you in the highlight, if I move this thing out of the way, we're well under a megabyte of data for all of that information. We've lost absolutely none of the actual names and addresses and CRM content that was in that file, and we've got it down to a much smaller size. And you'll note here, right above it, that I've taken that file and used file compression, and it doesn't really shrink it down by much because there isn't really that much to lose. And I'm going to show you now another way of looking at this, which is here. So Courtney, does this look familiar? Oh, you haven't seen it yet.
I was going to say, I don't see anything quite yet.
Okay. Let me try again here. How about now?
Not quite yet. It still says it started screen sharing. Now I can see it, and yes, it looks familiar. You're good.
There we go. Okay. You saw this earlier, but this is so this is a graphic depiction of what I just showed you in the File Explorer. So the large square is the original 93 megabyte Excel file, and below it in the box level letter C, this is what you get when you compress it down using just, you know, casual file compression. It just tries to stuff all the junk into as tiny a parcel as it can. Whereas if you're using Excel and you're using these, and you're knowledgeable and savvy, and you're using these approaches to slim down your files, you can get them down a much smaller amount. So I would encourage everyone to do a survey, what you can do with this information, all right? I want to show you something kind of neat. I want to encourage everybody to do something with this information, and that is, I'm just going to put myself on camera again, is to do look through the files that you have accumulated or that your company has accumulated either on your own personal desktop or on your shared drive, and look for any files, not necessarily, doesn't have to be Excel files, it can be other ones too. Anything over like 1 or 2 megabytes, you might be able to open up and use these methods to slim down. I want to show you a really cool